Hi, my friends. Welcome to Inside the Minds of Authors. I'm DC Gomez, your host, and also an indie author. I'm thrilled you're joining me today for another fun interview with a passionate author. We're going to kick off this show with an exciting reading, so let's get started.
Hello, my name is Vicki Lau. I'm the author of Why I Do Visual Effects, the Untold Truths About Working in Visual Effects. And I'll be reading from Chapter 2, I Love to Watch Movies. Sometimes at work, I get to listen in on the conversations that float around me. It's hard not to when you are packed rather tightly in an office space. This doesn't mean it doesn't surprise me, as visual effects studios are also businesses, and maximizing office space is most likely something many business owners would be thinking of. How many bodies can I fit into this corner of the room? They might ponder. Out of the over 20 studios I've been to and worked with, only 2 of them actually had enough room for you that you could fit a twin-size bed, well, actually 2 of them, running parallel to your desk with that entire space being yours. For the most part, us visual effects artists would be packed quite closely next to one another, perhaps an arm or so apart from the person sitting next to you in the same department. Either way, unintentional eavesdropping is quite easy with this kind of setup, and oftentimes you hear things you wished you hadn't, corny jokes, banal small talk that has absolutely zero substance, and random tidbits about the current state of affairs that you frankly couldn't care less. On a few rare occasions, I would hear a mainstay artist ask a newbie or a freelancer what got them into visual effects. The answer is almost always the same. Oh, well, when I was a kid, I used to watch insert favorite movie here and was inspired by the visual effects, so that's why I'm doing it. Or, when I was young, my dad/mom would always bring me to the local theater, and I just loved watching movies. I just knew that I had to get to entertainment. A stupid reason to get into visual effects. Firstly, if you are new and thinking of entering the visual effects industry, just know that I love to watch movies has got to be the stupidest reason for you to decide to pursue a career in visual effects. Here's why. If you are a successful artist, which I suppose is what any sane artist in any endeavor should aspire to become, you'll soon find that your time is short, and any time that you do have will not be committed to watching movies. In fact, some of the most successful or experienced veterans I know who are still in visual effects today would always tell me that they eventually got to a point where they simply didn't have the time to even watch their own work in the films and shows they had worked on. This, of course, makes absolute sense. As your success as a visual effects artist grows, so does the demand for your services, which includes the increasing demand for exclusivity of your time. Another reason that I love watching movies is such a stupid motivator to, is that watching movies isn't exactly the same as creating them. As someone with experience as both a moviegoer and movie creator, I can confirm that the latter definitely requires much more work, time, and effort on the part of the individual. Contrast that with kicking back, stale popcorn, and an oversized jug of sugary drink in hand and enjoying a 2-hour movie about superheroes. As I spend more time listening in on such conversations that involve divulging one's motivations for being a visual effects artist and tracking certain fellow colleagues on their visual effects journey, not consciously or with deliberation, just through, casual flicks on LinkedIn, whenever they make a random post or job announcement, I notice a trend. A large majority of these individuals who prop up I love to watch movies as a motivation for being in visual effects, eventually, years or even months later, leave visual effects to pursue other fields such as game development, television sports, or technology. This should not be surprising, since a passion for watching and enjoying movies does not necessarily equate to an equal amount of passion for creating them, let alone spending 40 to 50-hour weeks sitting in front of a computer screen with 10 small bags of Doritos, clicking away in After Effects or Nuke. And yes, I have been in that lucky position to overconsume Doritos free of charge. Many who do get into visual effects for this reason soon find themselves either not enjoying the amount of work it entails and the kind of work it involves, or simply wanting to do something else that they weren't allowed to. More on that later. Ultimately, only a few of the I love to watch movies types learn to adapt to visual effects and learn to enjoy the craft for its own sake, independently of whether their shots came from a fantastic production or a really low budget one. Another stupid reason to get into visual effects. On that note, while this reason isn't as stupid as the first, if you're thinking that you get to eventually make your own movies by working in visual effects, then I hate to burst your bubble, but this simply does not happen often, if ever. In my experience, I've found that the visual effects artists, whether they be compositors, supervisors, 3D animators, or the like, who eventually do end up directing and making their own movies, are the ones who had, in some capacity, left the visual effects industry some years ago. A few of them did something else for a while, but for the most part, they never actually returned to work in visual effects as an artist or supervisor, or even as a manager for that matter. Now, this isn't to say that it would be impossible to eventually create your own movies or bring your own stories to life as a visual effects artist. It's just that the industry, and to a larger extent Hollywood itself, has a way of ensnaring you into certain roles where 20 to 30 years later, you'll find yourself wondering why you never got a chance to actualize your own feature film script. Believe me, I actually know a few of these said visual effects artists who 20 to 30 years later still have not turned their film scripts into productions. Of course, I Want to Make Movies is definitely a recognizable step up from I love to watch movies as a form of motivation to get into the field of visual effects. But this reason still falls short depending on the type of person you are. Here's a simple example to enlighten you. Let's say you had a camcorder ever since you were 8. You filmed everything, your meals, family members, your pets, the bird carcass on the side of the road, or even the random bus driver who yells at you about their right to not be filmed, perhaps threatening to sue you to oblivion. Fair enough. Now, you get into visual effects about 15 years later, expecting to be able to get the same level of creative control over storytelling. Hey, I get to actually create movies that actually matter now. Yeah. Unfortunately, if you are the kind of person who wants to have your own story told, visual effects may not be the right niche to get into. However, through my conversations with many artists, as well as conversations overheard at the various studios I worked at, I have found that many chose to stay put. They stay, and they stay there until they have lost their focus or purpose in life, which was, I want to make movies, or more likely, I want to make my own movies. Now, this isn't to paint a grim and dismal picture of the world of visual effects. Again, it depends on the type of person you are. Some people who do want to make movies are completely happy playing second fiddle and being part of the creative process without actually owning anything of their own. Sure, your visual effects techniques may be your own somewhat. You may have your own ways of executing and delivering top-notch visual effects shots and assets to your team and supervisors, but technically you can never really call it your production. This also extends to the people doing post-production sound, and to a certain extent, special effects on set, as well as production design. Sure, you did work on that production, but it really isn't your production. Once again, this really depends on who you are. Yes, being a part of visual effects does allow you to make movies. They will never be your movies, but you did help make them happen. If you are satisfied with that, then go ahead and proudly exclaim, I want to make movies.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Inside the Minds of Authors. I am super thrilled today. I got the amazing Miss Vicki. How are you, madam?
I'm good. How about yourself?
I am thrilled to have you, and we're talking filmmaking, so I'm the kid in the room going, yay! So, let's get started. I want you to tell us about the book. I want you to tell us why you made this book. Let's get into it.
All right. So this book basically kind of summarizes my journey into visual effects and mainly working in Hollywood visual effects for about 10 years. So it's basically my journey, how I got into that, the strategies that people can employ who are interested in working in visual effects and, in the macro sphere like Hollywood. So yes, how it came about was technically I teach online courses, and to a certain extent, I wanted to do something different. This book was planned in the future, but stuff happened that resulted to I thought, okay, let's bring this forward and write this today. So that's how it came about. So I decided I want to write a book, and now here's the book. So there you go.
Hey, that is perfectly okay. It's usually how best creations happen. You had a feeling, you had a thought, and you went for it. I love it. How long did it take you to write this book? How long did it take you to put all these thoughts together?
Oh man, it's funny because I was asked that question. I was thinking whether I should tell them the actual answer or not, because it's funny because people always expect books to take very long time, like years, right? It didn't take years for me, but it doesn't mean that the quality of the book is anyway, less or whatever. But let's just say I started in 2020. It's released in this year. So there you go. But it's less than a year.
That's not a bad thing. I know people that have different spectrums for everything. It always depends how organized you are. That's kind of what I figure. Because I can tell you my first novel took me 4 months to write. So I'm with you. It's like, it's not a bad thing.
There you go. I'm glad I felt like, okay, it has to be long. If not, people will feel bad. But okay, good. I'm glad to know that. It
has nothing to do on length. It literally is your structure and how you write and how quickly you do it. Some of us can put a book very quickly. Some other people, the process takes a little longer. So 10 years of information distilled into a book.
Yeah.
When you were thinking about this book, who do you have in mind? Who were you thinking about talking to?
Good question. Actually, I wrote this book for me. It was kind of cathartic in a way because there's a lot of things that happened during my career that would be very interesting to share, and it is a male dominated industry. So there is that side of the coin. And of course, Hollywood and stuff like that. But yeah, I wrote this for me. I noticed that a lot of the books out there on visual effects are software books, how to click this button and stuff like that. So this is kind of the first of its kind that doesn't touch on the history of visual effects, which again, there's a lot of that. I mean, I understand the importance of history, but if I'm writing this for me, I can Google the history of things online. I don't have to put it in a book. So yeah.
I like the perspective you're bringing to the table. How is the creative journey for you?
Wow, okay. I never had to answer that question before. So I guess the creative journey into visual effects. Well, let's just say it kind of started when I was given a camcorder. So I talk more about this, my origin, so to speak, of how I kind of got this camcorder at the age of 14. And I enjoyed that because, back then I was a very quiet kid. I didn't have any friends. So the camcorder was like my friend. Went around filming stuff, and then I did video editing, and my passion for video editing kind of grew into visual effects. So in a way, visual effects allowed me to kind of fully express myself because you can literally create your own reality in post-production, which is excellent.
That is absolutely awesome for anybody who's thinking of filmmaking. There's so many different areas that anybody can go at any given time. So why did you pick this chapter to read to us? Because I think it's quite clever and it's just amazingly funny. Why this one?
There's really no other reason other than it's one of my favorites. But also, I guess, in a way, it kind of breaks that illusion of visual effects. People think, oh, visual effects must be so fancy. You must be paid a lot of money. That's the other thing too, that people think that you get into visual effects, you get like a box office. You don't. So, but yeah, so it kind of shatters that illusion that visual effects is this flashy, smashy thing that allows you kind of to be a creator of movies. That is not necessarily true. The only way you get to be a real creator of movies in terms of telling your story is to actually either be the writer, producer, or director. Not really as a visual effects artist. So some people are cool with that. Some people, they thought that getting to visual effects allows them to eventually, create their own movies. Well, not really.
It's a really fun way to break that whole magical behind the scenes kind of world that most people do expect. Most people think I'm going to be creating, I'm going to have a part of this. Is you're part of a greater machine and somebody else's vision you're creating. So
yes.
Are you still in the industry? That's the next question.
Yes. Okay. But I did answer at the end of my book. I didn't want to give it away. So for the kind of detailed plans, it's at the end of the book. So I'll just say yes for the sake of answering the question.
Yeah. Everybody can pick up the book if you're as curious as I am. You're like, what is she up to now? Let's jump to the writing process.
Okay.
What did you learn putting this book together? Because it's very different than being in film.
Yes, it is. I learned that most of my time is actually spent researching on the writing, self-publishing process itself. So it wasn't more of I had to look up what visual effects is. No, like everything, all that comes from my experience, right? So I learned mostly how to kind of self-publish independently. And this being my first book, it was really exciting to kind of see it from my head, enter the real world and now on Amazon. So yes, learning a lot about self-publishing, editors, even an audiobook, getting a producer for that, stuff like that. So yeah.
You're able to take a lot of the things you use in the film industry and just kind of cross over to what we do in the book world. Because there are some similarities, but at the same time, there's a lot more of the creative passion that you have. What was your favorite part of the process?
My favorite part is actually, let's see, I have a lot of favorites. I'm biased. I just love seeing the idea come from my head and, being out there right now in the real world. So I would say every single part, even the writing, the research, finding, hiring people. Oh, that's my favorite as well. Cause I love bringing together talented people to kind of execute and bring this project to life. So I'm not one of those people that, I want to do the design, the cover myself, no, it's better to get like a second pair of eyes to kind of look at your work and to edit and stuff like that. So yes.
You're used to also working in an industry that's very team oriented. So getting artists to work on your book probably felt more natural than some writers are used to. So I think that's beautiful. Are you considering doing another book?
Yes.
Tell us about it. As in, you tell us.
I don't know. I'm not a fan of revealing my stuff until it's out, but let's just say it also has something to do with artists in general. Yeah, I think that's all I'll say about that.
It's all good. I like it. You have a very unique way of telling your story because it's very memoirish. Are you looking for an overall theme when people read it? Because you might have a brand new or young person who's interested in jumping into the graphic worlds. What would be the message you would tell them?
Well, I would say it kind of culminates at the end about assessing whether your industry kind of appeals to your ambition, what I call the ambition appetite. I believe every one of us has a certain level of ambition in life, whether we want to achieve more or we are happy with where we're at. There's no right or wrong answer. So I guess for the new person thinking of getting to visual effects, it'll be good to kind of assess, okay, do you actually want to do visual effects because you enjoy helping create movies? Or do you want to make your own, which is going to be different? You kind of have to figure that out. And I believe, kind of putting 10 years into this book, they don't have to spend 10 years figuring that out. They just read the books. So yeah.
It's a good way to looking at it. It's such a good advice. Can you do an assessment at the beginning before spending your time? I like the example you gave of the people that have been there for 20, 30 years and lost their purpose. Like that to me was like, ooh, what do you do then? Like you have seen these people, like, what do they do? Are they still at least enjoying the work they're doing now? Or are they miserable?
It's a good question. I would say that they're enjoying it, but also because, I think it's more like a habit now. They're comfortable. And once you get into a certain age, it's just natural that, people of a certain age, they just want to be familiar with things. They don't want to change things up unnecessarily. It takes a kind of greater effort to break out of that cycle. So these people are probably in their 50s or 60s. I've met them before. They showed me their script. Oh, I want to make this into a production. But, years later, it's still the same. It's kind of sad, but I guess, it's just the way, like, older people are kind of ingrained to just want to not shake things up so unnecessarily, especially if they have kids and stuff like that. So
it's safe. A lot of the consulting that I do deals with that safe factor and that fear factor. When you're 20s, you're fearless. You're like, hey, you want to go cross country? Let's do this. Once you hit, I think 37 to 40, you like have a house and a mortgage and some kids. Yep. Hey, you want to go take, it's like, wait, you want me to do what? Like there's a house payment that has to come out. Yeah, that might not work out. It's a good perspective to look at it is those major life decisions are a little harder to make the older you get.
Yeah.
Do the people in your industry know you wrote this book?
Yes. I kind of put it on LinkedIn, the audiobook at least. I say, 11 hours, finally out on Audible. And then a few people in the industry kind of liked it and stuff like that. So yeah, I was a little bit hesitant to share it because of the ending. I kind of knew what I was going to do at the end. And I'm not going to spoil it, but I just say, you know what, heck it, I'm just going to put it out there, see what happens. So there you go.
That was my question. Like, how do they take it? Because you're taking a really in-depth look at this industry that many people don't know about.
Yeah.
Like, were they ready for you to reveal the secrets?
I don't know. If they had any negative thoughts, they didn't tell me about it, but definitely the ones who liked it, they were, let's just say they're kind of like in the upper levels of the industry. So I'm glad, that I got their approval in the indirect way. Not that I care about their approval, but that they liked it. I was like, oh, okay, cool. That's good to know. I don't really care, but cool.
You gave them a voice. It portrayed a really good way of people to see it and connecting, because that's what you're looking for. So where can people find the book? Let's talk about that. Where can they learn more about you if they're interested?
So basically this book is right now on Amazon. Actually, it's on other places too, like Kobo and stuff like that. And it's also in audiobook form and paperback. So all three formats, ebook, Audible, audiobooks.com, all that stuff. So yeah. And if you guys want to find out more about me, or girls want to find out more about me, you can see my past works on IMDb, stuff I've worked on that you probably have heard, The Walking Dead, Guardians of the Galaxy, stuff like that online. So yeah.
So our listeners can find you in many different places. They can also see your actual background career, where all these babies are coming from.
Yeah.
How do you have the knowledge to talk about it? Because every once in a while, that is the real question is, do you have the credentials to talk about this topic? And you've been there, you've been in the industry, you have seen it.
Yeah.
So tell us, what advice would you give somebody in any new industry that's trying to take a jump and decide to write a book? What would you tell them?
I would say it sounds pretty simple, but just do it. Because what I notice about writers, and they're very detail-oriented people, which is a good thing. Visual effects is the same way. They like to overanalyze sometimes. They like to think about writing it. They think about how they're going to start, but they don't actually start. So I would say after you did the necessary thinking, mulling and sitting there, in your quiet space, just go ahead and type the first word. Just start with the first word. And continue from there and see what happens. Just do it. So yeah.
It might sound simple, but it's really, really hard.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
Like, you think you hit the nail on the head. People get paralysis by analysis. They overanalyze this thing at the end of it. You're like, that's great, but are you going to start? Like, when is this book going to get started? Not even done. Like, we just want you to start. So listeners, take a leap of faith and start writing, because you definitely need to put those words out there. But you are so much fun. I'm so excited for your book. This is so great. But are you ready for a lightning round?
Yes.
Let's see. Breakfast or dinner?
Dinner.
Nice. Sweet or spicy?
Spicy.
Snoopy or Scooby-Doo?
Snoopy.
You have to think about that one. You're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Fall or spring?
Fall.
This one is a little bit interesting because it's actually you are the main character of your book. If you had a theme song, what would it be?
Oh, man, I have so many theme songs. Probably my theme song is probably very closely tied to what the industry is all about, which is like zombies and stuff like that. So I would say, Disturbed, Indestructible. Probably never heard of it. It's pretty crazy, but yeah, there you go.
I like it. So, but, has been an awesome pleasure. So much fun. You're so passionate and exciting. So it's always fun to talk to you. Do you have any closing remarks for us?
Get the book. It's free on Audible. There's a trial, so it's technically free.
Oh, that is an awesome trial. Absolutely, everybody. Grab the book, take a listen, figure out if you're interested in this industry, if you just want to go out there and write a book. Madame, it is a pleasure. Thank you for joining us. To our listeners, go ahead, grab the book. And while you're at it, give this podcast a like, share with a friend, invite other people to join us. We're always better when we grow together. If you're liking the podcast and would like to continue to support us, join the Patreon community is patreon.com/author DC Gomez and give us some love. In that case, I will see you guys all next week for another exciting author. Bye, everyone.